The Jewel of Sin was the earliest that we published as a document in 1997. And then, of course, the damage assessment mission, and you can see all that were done. Basically from starting from 1997, but really in the last, from the 2011 period, we've been very intensely involved in the whole thing. Although all over these years, Suhail Zahir Lari has been actually photographing the whole of Makli, so we really have photographs, from all that period as to what happened when. And these are some of the other books that are there that have been published. So we had to do it because we needed to develop an understanding of what Makli is all about, and it helped us to conserve and to do the work that we are doing. So the fourth part of my presentation now, it has where we provided emergency interventions. I would like to tell you that Makli is so huge, it really is huge, that it is not possible to provide funding and to provide the resources and provide the skilled workforce and supervisory staff that is needed to really conserve every monument in its totality. And we have to work out a way by which we provide emergency interventions, by which at least we stabilize the structures, and we try to see that we can buy time. And that buying of time is important for us to be able to carry on. So the emergency interventions, the first one was Tomb of Sama Noble I, which was supported by Prince Claus Fund. Then there was Mosque of Aulia Pir with support from Spiritual Cause, and also a Bauli, which has partially been done again with support from Spiritual Cause. And I'm delighted to inform you that Chief Executive of Spiritual Cause from South Africa is here today, whose heart she's now got in Makli. So she keeps on visiting, and she's there. I think maybe we should give her a hand because she's a foreigner and she's doing all this. So please, thank you very much. Makli has so many supporters. It has so many people who want to do things for Makli, and we need to bring them all together, who will then help to really maintain it in the way that it should be. So 2012, you can see the tomb of Sama Noble I. It is 15th century. It is stabilized as a ruin. We could not find much evidence of what it was. So it's stabilized, and now it is okay. It will not collapse. Otherwise, many of the structures are now very close to collapse. And then 2013, the Aulia Pir Mosque, that was done with the spiritual cords that I just mentioned of 16th century, and also a Bauli that is still to be done. So these are the ones that we did, and it taught us a lot as to how to handle the more sophisticated structures, or the ones that require much more work in them. Now we come to the fifth part, which is the conservation of 16th century monuments, which is the title of my paper. So there are 3 monuments that have been actually restored from 2014 to 2017. There's the tomb of Mirza Jan Baba, which is done with support from Federal Republic of Germany. There's the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim, with support from US Ambassadors Fund. The tomb of Amir Sultan Muhammad, which is also done with support from US Ambassadors Fund. Just wanted to share with you that taking on conservation is, of course, everybody knows, is no easy task. But I think what is more important, or most important, is that we prepare sufficient documentation and sufficient research before we actually even touch the monument. And this is something that is very important, and I hope that, especially with Makli, because it is a World Heritage Site, but because it's so valuable for Sindh and for Pakistan, that we need to see that we do justice to whatever is being done. And so just to tell you, we do follow international charters and guidelines that we have formed actually for all these monuments, consultative committees of renowned international and national experts, that we have strict control and supervision of works, and periodic review of works is undertaken, that weekly, monthly and quarterly reports have been placed on HF websites. They are all done because we must know what's going on. And then there are certain principles I thought I should share with you. I'm sure that you're well aware. The principles of do no harm. We don't do anything that will damage the original evidence or integrity of the structure. That there should be least intervention. We should not do something that is not really required. We don't want to, do something that will hurt the building or the structure in any way. We have to protect all original evidence and materials, whatever is there, and we identify it as being the original. It must be maintained in its totality. We should use reversible techniques. For instance, if we do something which we think is okay, but over time, because there are always changing principles for even conservation, So over time, if somebody comes and thinks that what has been done is not really in the best interest of that particular historic site, then it should be reversible. So nothing should be done. So that's why cement should never be used. Cement is totally not allowed on heritage sites. We always use lime, which is the material that has always been used in the past and must continue to be used. Then matching materials, so everything that we do has to match with whatever was done before. We should not introduce new materials. I personally don't believe in any of the chemicals and other new materials that are now available, because that may hurt the structure. So we have to be very, very careful how we do it. And then we should respect the age of the monument and avoid making it look new. You see, when you're working on these things, it's very tempting that you can make it all look really good and everything will be fine. But in the process, sometimes you lose the integrity and the feel of the monument. And that is something it's important for us to understand. We're not there to make it look new. We're not there to make it of this age. It belongs to a certain age, and that age must be respected. And we must see that what we do is finally presents how things were done. So if you go to the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim, I don't know whether any of you had a chance to go there. Have you been to the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim? Anybody? Nobody has been there to the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim? You have? So you might have seen that we've left a lot of things that look unfinished. And particularly if you go into the inside, there's a lot of, even the stucco has not been renewed, which we could have done it. But the fact is that when you go inside, you can see how the whole structure is and how beautifully the old artisans had actually constructed the whole thing, and the designer. And being a Timurid structure, it is of absolutely amazing value. So what we did was to see that anybody who comes in can understand how the whole thing was actually put together. So this is the tomb of Mirza Jan Baba. Did you have a chance to look at it? You saw that also. It's a totally a stone structure, and it really is an enclosure initially, and then later on the outer porch and the inner grave canopies were built, and then the last stage was when the little zanana was built. And so there are lots of stories attached to it, which I could go on and tell you, but I don't think there's the time, so we'll just confine ourselves to just conservation work. You can see this before and after, and the top is before. The domes had collapsed, and what we did was, which is not normally done, is to erect domes, but the domes are entirely reversible, and I have to tell you that we try out many different kinds of innovative techniques to do this. These domes are not stone, so we are not replicating what was there, and we had one. The central dome is actually the original, and we've tried to keep it in exactly in the same state that it was, and where there were cracks and so on, we've done the filling with brick in that, and it's entirely distinguishable from the original. And then the three other domes that are built are actually made with bamboo, and it's where they're very, very light, and they're very good. They give the feeling of how the space would have been without actually trying to replicate stone. So it's important for us to see and do it with great sensitivity. And there may be disagreement, and what I say to that is, well, you can remove it. It's very easy to remove, and anybody who has a better idea of doing it, most welcome to do it. But we have to protect the original evidence. So the graves that are there under the grave canopy are extremely important. They are the ones that are of the murdered whole family of Jan Baba and his sister and brother-in-law and so on. So this is the whole dynastic battle that went on between brothers. And then it was built by one of the most renowned rulers, which was Isa Tarkhan II, whose father Jan Baba was. So this is all there, and you can see that on the top it was how there were no domes, and then now you see, and it protects the graves completely now. There's no water coming in, which was affecting the graves. There was settlement going on, so we were able to actually protect all that. And then there was this walkway, which I think was built by Jan Baba's father, the Isa Tarkhan II, whose fantastic mausoleum is at the end. And the walkway had all but disappeared, so we kept every evidence of what was there. and we built upon the foundations that we could see. And this was important because this gave the connection between the two mausoleums. So we felt that we had to do it, but you can distinguish and you can see what is new and what was there before. So it's all there and all very carefully done and so on. And then I've got some slides just to show you that we did work on them. They didn't appear like that. So they're just to show how cleaning and how everything was actually carried out. So that is about Mirza Jahan Baba. Now we come to the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim, which is, as you know, an extremely lofty tomb. It's got its amazing double dome, which is my husband, historian, tells me that that's the first double dome built in the whole of South Asia. So it has this tremendous significance. And it is, of course, Timurid, and because the Sultan Ibrahim was actually, he married a Timurid woman who was a Tarkhan, and was actually probably related to the Tarkhan family of the Timurids. Especially the very famous princess who built so many wonderful buildings in Herat. So it's all done in that, and it's probably one of the first domes that survived because it was built in a particular manner. If you go back into the Samma period and others, you'll find that most of the domes have collapsed because the knowledge and the understanding of how the domes had to be built was not developed enough. And here comes then this, the seal bearer of the ruler of Herat, and he brings in all the, whatever artisans from Central Asia, and they're able to do this fantastic dome, which has a lower ceiling. You can see the soffit if you go inside, but actually the dome with the turquoise tiles is way above. So you can see both the buildings are on the same platform. Tomb of Amir Sultan, the small structure, is in the front, and the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim is the main structure around, Sultan Ibrahim died around 1559, so it's about maybe that period. But it must have taken many years for it to construct. So this is the amazing dome and the tomb, and it was in a pretty rundown condition. I have to say that Makli has been in a state of despair for a long time, and because the federal government, after the work, really good work in 1960s, didn't really do much more. And once it was transferred to the provinces, there was this problem of expertise and who were there and not there. And so for many years, it was neglected. And that's why I'm so pleased and delighted that things are now happening, things are moving, and hopefully we save whatever is now left. So you can see the two tombs there. And I don't know if you can see, but this is the before and after kind of pictures to show you. Maybe I'll just go back a little bit and, oops. Anyhow, we'll just let it carry on. So you can see that in the top, a lot of it is gone, and then we've tried to do it very sensitively. We've not tried to put everything new. Where we found some evidence, we actually went ahead. But if we did not find any evidence, we did not know how the pattern was, for instance, in glazed tiles, we did not try to complete it. As you can see, this particular one, the whole of the calligraphic tiles were gone, and this really is the south, the entrance of the tomb. But we found, luckily, on the north, entire calligraphic ayat. It was all there, and so I'll show you later how we managed to then restore. So what you see on the right is the calligraphic panel is all replicas. The spandrel on the upper level is partially new and partially replica. But we tried to do as much justice to this as possible. But we come back to now Sultan Ibrahim. So this is how you can see there was lots of caveats, there was lots of lacunae, there was lots of damage, and so wherever possible we tried to stabilize the structure. We tried to see that no water can actually enter from any side at all. So all those have been plugged. So hopefully it will last for as long as possible. You can see the kind of work that had to be done on the dome. We had a bamboo scaffolding on the dome. And I might just tell you that I believe in zero carbon structures, so I use them as much as possible. We do it in humanitarian work, but I'm trying to bring it into the work of heritage as well, but I think it's a very good thing to do. So you can see how the work is going on here. Okay, and then on the left is really the little archway that also has been restored. this is the revival of ancient clay style project set up by Republic of Korea Fund and Trust and UNESCO World Heritage. And so we've set up a Kashi atelier there. There are workshops by local Kashi artisans and UNESCO international experts were held, and training has been done for several artisans. Okay, this is how the original Kashi work was onto these Sultan Ibrahim's different facets, and you can see that this the calligraphy has all been completed because we had the evidence on the north, which is the left, and then there was some evidence on the west and east side, but there was none on the south side. But now you can see wherever the evidence was, it's been filled in. So the building, the spiritual feel of the building has been restored, luckily, because we had the evidence. And you can see how beautiful the whole thing is. I'll just quickly run through how we did it, the whole documentation, making drawings, making sure everything is done, because they're all tiles of different sizes, and they were done. And then there we are, each tile was drawn and put in. So a lot of effort went into trying to see how we could do it. The tiles are being made, everything is drawn by hand, every tile is drawn by hand and had to match with the tiles, whatever was existing on the site. You can see how the workmen were really good. We managed to train a lot of these artisans. So lacuna have all been filled, and interventions have to be distinguishable, so you can see where the old and the new are. And now this is the last part of my presentation, the mendicant community engagement. We are engaging very heavily with the community that is really a community of beggars. So we do use them in stonework, lime work, and pointing bamboo structures, removing graffiti, and women have been trained to make terracotta glazed ceramics, jewelry, and other things. And here you can see different, they are all mostly people who are from the community who've been taught how to work together. And below is the Karima, our role model, who does this amazing work, who her family and 6 other families no longer beg. They're all involved in making ceramic tiles. So there we are. And you can see how she's going on, and she makes these small things, and she's selling them. And she's making enough money that she doesn't have to beg anymore. And then just to say the way forward, we need support for UNESCO Makli Kashi Center for fabrication of glazed tiles, for conservation of Makli monuments, conducting training sessions for different groups, marketing ceramic jewelry, mementos, and saleable items, spreading small kilns and women's youth trainings in villages and schools. That's what we need to do now. And just the last slide about Heritage Foundation of Pakistan, we provide training and guidance for heritage safeguarding and emergency preventive intervention using low-cost green materials and innovative methodologies to prolong the life of heritage under threat. It engages communities for developing a stake in heritage sites by providing training in crafts and zero-carbon, low-cost structures as humanitarian assistance to marginalized sections of society. Thank you very much for your patience.
Fatma Qureshi, I wanted to say doctor, but doctor in making, we can say legend in making. My next scholar, Fatma Qureshi, is currently the 2016-2018 Andrew W. Mellon Pre-Doctoral Fellow at the Center of Advanced Studies in the Visual Arts at the National Gallery of Art, Washington, D.C. She is a PhD candidate at the Institute of Fine Arts, New York University, where she is writing her dissertation, and her topic is also interesting and especially related to her field, Necropolis as palimpsests, the cemetery of Makli in Sindh, Pakistan. In 2014, she was the Hagup Kevorkian Curatorial Research Fellow in the Department of Islamic Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. Her most recent publication is a chapter entitled Elements of the Mosque, Form and the Adornment in the Mosques, Splendor of Islam, published by Rizzoli Books, New York, and is contributing a chapter to a forthcoming edited volume of saintly spheres and Islamic landscapes, and especially emplacements of spiritual power across time and place, to be published by Brill. Miss Qureshi was the co-curator of an exhibition recently held at Mota Palace, Karachi, and that exhibition was titled as Paradise on Earth: Manuscripts, Miniatures, and various things, especially mendicants from Kashmir. Her research has been supported by numerous grants, including Vliner Family Fellowship, the Peter J. Sharp Foundation Fellowships, and American Institute of Pakistan Studies Research Grant. Our topic of today's paper is Encounters in Sindh, Mediating Between East and West in the 16th Century. May I request all the scholars to please wind up their papers within 20 minutes. May I request Fatma Qureshi to please present her paper on the topic.
In the National Museum of Pakistan in Karachi are 3 epigraphic monumental stone panels, originally from a mosque in Sindh. Dated to 938 Hijri, 1531-32 CE, the panels are unlike anything produced in the region, introducing new ornamental motifs that include arabesque patterns and floral vines that surround the text. A central interlaced Kufic text with the words Allah, Rasul, Ali, God, the Prophet Muhammad, and his son-in-law Ali. The remainder of the text, Persian hemistitches in a clear Nastaliq script, is a historical inscription for a Friday mosque, no longer extant, constructed during the rule of Shah Hassan. Hassan was an Arghun, a member of a Turco-Mongolian tribe that claimed descent from the Mongol ruler Arghun Khan, who ruled between 1284 and 1291. The Arghuns had served the Timurid ruler Sultan Hussein Mirza Beqara and his son Badiuzzzaman Mirza in Afghanistan in the waning years of the Timurid Empire before coming to Sindh. The unrelenting march of the Uzbek Shaybanids across Central Asia under the rulership of Muhammad Shaybani Khan was the likely catalyst for this movement. Their timing was propitious. The Samars of Sindh were weakened under the contested leadership of Jam Feroz, the last Samar ruler who ceded control to Hassan's father, Shah Beg. The arrival of the Arghuns had a profound effect upon the arts of southern Sindh, of which the aforementioned panel is the earliest surviving evidence. The floral patterns of the panel's border include peonies and lotus blossoms, evocative of borders in manuscripts produced in Timurid artistic workshops. Similarly, the Kufic text finds parallels in objects and monuments such as the inscriptions on the minaret of the Friday Mosque of Gohar Shad. That these affinities began to occur only in the 16th century, at the same moment as the arrival of specific Turkic groups in Sindh, suggests a deliberate importation of an artistic vocabulary that had developed in Central Asia and Iran, sometimes labeled as the Timurid international style. This artistic style did not fill a lacuna. A vibrant artistic tradition already existed in Sindh, as indicated by the fine sepulchral monuments at Makli, begun in the late 14th century. Consisting primarily of ornately carved stone trabeate structures, the architecture of southern Sindh demonstrated connections to Maru Gurjara architecture, a style with origins in Gujarat and Rajasthan. The translocation of Central Asian forms, motifs, and styles fomented a process of translation and reinterpretation, ultimately resulting in monuments that distilled and reshaped both of these geographically dispersed styles into a local idiom. This paper examines the architecture of southern Sindh during this period of momentous change. First, I will present the specific mediums and ornamental motifs that represent new aesthetic elements in Sindhi architecture. The second half of this paper will focus on the Dabgir Mosque, built in 1588 by Khusro Khan Charkhas, Grand Vizier in Thatta. The mosque epitomizes the complex dialogues craftsmen participating in, interpreting and integrating diverse regional stylistic trends and artistic vocabularies. The artistic transformations instigated during the period of Arghun Tarkhan rule can be observed through the lens of 2 ornamental forms, Bannai and arabesque chinoiserie. The first category of Bannai, the use of colored tiles and unglazed bricks to form geometric ornament, also includes the introduction of glazed tiles in cobalt, turquoise, and white into the artistic repertoire of southern Sindh. Glazed tiles were already in use in the medieval architecture of the northern Indus Valley, such as the medieval tombs in Multan and Uch, but these monuments do not seem to have had much of a relation to the artistic practice of the lower Indus Valley. The technique of Bannai in particular was closely associated with Timurid monuments, such as the mausolea at the Shah-e-Zinda necropolis in Samarkand, and numerous structures in Makli make extensive use of such ornamentation. A subtle but more pervasive transformation in the architecture of southern Sindh entailed the application of elaborate ornamentation in the form of the characteristic forked rinso of arabesque designs, and floral vines of lotus, peonies, and carnations associated with chinoiserie patterns first seen during the Ilkhanate period and subsequently having a long history of use in the Islamic world. Along with the epigraphic panel introduced earlier, one finds examples of carved stone as decorative elements on architecture and in cenotaphs with the same distinctive lotus and peony vines. The horizontal surface of this cenotaph from Makli is designed with a cusped arch, within which are cartouches with abstract arabesque designs surrounded by interlaced foliage. This layout recalls the carved cenotaphs produced in Central Asia in the 15th and 16th centuries. A cenotaph at the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha illustrates these parallels. The horizontal surface of the carved grey schist grave marker is divided in the same manner as at Makli and includes an arch filled with floral arabesques of comparable form. Formal analysis of these designs and their execution on stone are critical in understanding possible methods of artistic transmission. In particular, a key difference between the carved stone produced in Timurid Iran and Central Asia and that in Sindh is the difference in the degree of fine detailing in the ornamental patterns. The example from Doha, another in the Victoria and Albert Museum, and a third in the Gardner Museum in Boston all employ three-dimensional modeling in their execution, particularly in the fine details of the flowers and leaves. By contrast, the stonework in Sindh is executed in a flat, two-dimensional style, even though the locally sourced sandstone can be carved to create a similar effect. This difference suggests that it was not through the movement of stone carvers from Central Asia, but rather through portable objects, such as paintings and illuminations from Timurid manuscript traditions and inlaid metalwork, that designs were extracted. This hypothesis is further supported by the fact that stone carving was already flourishing in southern Sindh, as evidenced by the earlier architecture of Makli, and there would have been little demand for craftsmen. Floral arabesque designs were also produced on underglazed painted tiles. These tiles were produced in two main forms, hexagonal tiles with a repetitive pattern that covered the dados of buildings, and tiles designed to fit in spandrels above arches. Both types can be found in the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim built in the late 16th century. These painted tiles have less refined designs when compared with the finely carved stone examples already discussed, but were produced in far larger quantities, which may explain the difference in quality. Ceramics became the primary decorative techniques for monuments throughout Makli and Thatta from the 16th century onwards. It is perhaps for this reason that arabesque ornament persisted in Sindhi architecture, now expressed in a ceramic rather than stone medium, as seen in monuments such as the tomb of the Kalhora rulers dating from the 18th century. The contemporaneous introduction of Banai and arabesque chinoiserie into the artistic vocabulary of southern Sindh transformed the region's aesthetics. Isolated objects, such as the epigraphic panels, now displaced from their original context, allow us to identify these new styles and motifs. They do not, however, allow us to examine the interaction between newly introduced aesthetics and prevailing artistic styles. Close formal analysis of a single monument, the Dabgir Mosque, reveals the innovative manner in which craftsmen and architects mingle the old with the new. The mosque, built in 1588 as a replacement for the Sama period mosque, which is no longer extant, was carefully designed to reflect Islamicate and Indic artistic traditions. Dabgir is a typical courtyard mosque, with three domed bays and iwans on the exterior, the central bay and iwan being larger and more opulent than the rest. The building is constructed of fired bricks, faced with sandstone slabs on the dado. The exterior decoration employs glazed tiles, most of which consist of monochrome tiles in cobalt and turquoise inserted between unglazed bricks. In small panels above the south and north arched entrances and in the arched soffit of the central iwan, tiles are arranged in geometric patterns, i.e. banai, employing both monochrome glazed tiles and underglazed painted tiles. In addition, between the iwans are arched panels with turquoise, cobalt, and white painted tiles. The ornamentation on the panels is of a style often found in illuminated pages of manuscripts, with a cusp shape at the lower edge and cartouches above, filled with arabesque designs. Around the cusp form is a floral scroll with a serpentine swirling cloud pattern meandering through the center. The exterior gives a preview of the interior spaces, where the background decoration of turquoise tiles inserted between brick continues and is elaborated further. The side chambers are primarily decorated with tile work. Banai decoration is employed in shallow niches on the north and south, in the archways between prayer spaces, and in the zone of transition of the domes. The Banai tiles must have inspired artisans, as they also designed unglazed painted tiles with geometric designs in a sort of faux Banai, decorating the north and south niches in the Qibla wall. The tile work in all the interior spandrels is identically designed with an ogival cartouche in each corner, surrounded by scrolling vines of lotuses and carnations. The magnum opus of the entire mosque, the central prayer hall, is designed as an airy, light-filled chamber, originally topped by a dome which no longer stands, a wide entrance iwan, windows on the Qibla wall and in the zone of transition. An inscription of verses 1 through 12 from chapter 17, Al-Isra, or the night journey from the Quran, is executed in glazed tiles, demonstrating yet another use of the newly introduced decorative technique around the space just below the zone of transition. Verses 78 to 84 of the same chapter are carved on the mihrab. The diverse media and motifs in the mosque coalesce into a single program in the mihrab and minbar. The decoration of the mihrab is divided into three segments: a glazed tilework spandrel, following the same design of floral arabesques noted earlier, a panel of tiles inset in geometric patterns, and finally a sandstone carved niche. The niche is carved with multiple bands of ornament, including fringed and cusped edges, arabesque bands, Quranic inscription, and the prominent repeated use of lotus medallions in bands as bosses on the carved spandrel and in the base molding. The lotus flower is a prominent motif throughout Dabgir's decorative program, and in its varied representation and placement, we can observe a blending of artistic vocabularies. In the tile ornament, the lotus is usually contained within arabesque designs, and its form derives from the newly introduced chinoiserie motifs of Central Asia. The carving on the side of the minbar also demonstrates this connection. A swirling arabesque scroll with forked rinso is contained within a cast outline on the lower side. The design extends with crisscrossing vines dotted with lotus flowers and carnations. The fully open lotus flowers in the mihrab, however, derive from Indic architectural ornament. The lotus appears frequently in temple design, as it is a form invested with symbolic qualities of radiance in Indic religious traditions. The lotus in full blossom was also adopted for use in the mosques of the subcontinent, beginning in the early Delhi Sultanate period, often replacing the common Islamic iconographic trope of lamps hanging in mihrab niches. The skirting in the Dabgir mihrab references this usage, depicting a lotus flower within a cusped arch. The carved stonework of the mihrab and minbar are the most spectacular examples of craftsmanship at Dabgir. While the building itself is a classical example of mosque architecture, from its layout to its epigraphic program, and the tilework evidence of the transmission of artistic traditions from Central Asia and Iran to South Asia, the sandstone carving is a testament to the ingenuity and skill of local artisans. Moreover, the carving demonstrates the complex geography of ornament operating in Sindh during the 16th century, where the confluence of patrons of Central Asian origins, long-established Indo-Islamic iconographic motifs, and local craftsmen combined to fashion a monument in which all of these factors are palpable. This diversity in form and media was, of course, contingent upon mobility of people and objects, and Dabgir's decorative program provides some indications of the means of artistic transmission. The niche of the mihrab is carved with arabesques that echo those in the bands of ornament, but that are divided into two segments by a zigzag border of floral vines. The effect is reminiscent of textiles, particularly that of tents and pavilions. The Timurid use of tents for courtly purposes is well known, and such scenes in miniature often depict the use of luxurious, highly decorated textiles as canopies. The source for the niche's design, therefore, could have been derived from textiles and manuscripts brought by Turkic polities to Sindh. Evidence